Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our live event focused on bringing younger generations into the insurance industry, both as consumers and people that are building their careers here. I've got such a wonderful lineup of all women, which I'm always excited about because sometimes I have to work to get a group together. And this time it just fell together with all of my experts being other ladies in the industry. I've got a couple of assignments for everybody that's in the chat before I come to everybody else to do an introduction. So first of all, Valerie, and I'm going to tag her in the comments in a minute, shared that she's going to be celebrating her birthday with us today. So I'm going to wish her happy birthday, and I would love it if everybody else does as well. Number two, we'd love to hear where you're joining in from. And then number three, any questions that you've got. Otherwise, you're all going to be left to what questions are in my brain and my brain alone. And we all know that that's a scary place. So I would encourage all of you to let us know what questions you've got for everybody as we get going. So then to my women on the panel, I'm going to come to each one of you guys and ask you for an introduction. And then because we're talking about coming into the insurance industry, I want to talk to all of you guys about your path coming into the industry, because each one of us kind of has a different and unique story to tell. So Kate, I'm going to get started by coming to you and ask you to give everybody an introduction and then share that origin story, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody, and happy birthday, Valerie. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Surround Insurance. We're a digital insurance agency focused on Gen Z. My background in the insurance industry is in product management. I was at Progressive and then Plymouth Rock, and then most recently at Liberty Mutual before taking the plunge and becoming an entrepreneur. So my origin story is not that I went to fourth grade career day and said I want to be in insurance, but that when I was in business school, I had a bunch of interviews off campus, and this guy dressed in jeans came out of the interview room next to the room where I just finished one and said, "Hey, do you want to come talk to me about insurance?" and it turned out to be Ron Davies, who was a product manager at Progressive and was later the CEO of a big insurance company as well. And what I was really excited about in talking to him, because I hadn't been considering insurance, was the idea that life is inherently unfair, and what we do in the insurance industry is try to make life more fair, right? Like, we can't control who's going to go out and get in an accident today, but we can put them back together afterwards. And that sort of hit home. So that, and then the combination of human behavior and trying to make the world a safer place, and also huge arrays of data that we can use to help make better decisions. That was really what got me interested. And I think then I stayed because the people in insurance are great. They're a surprisingly low-key, hugely intelligent, really fun group of people, which I know people outside the insurance industry are probably not like insurance is fun, but it is. It's just the nicest people working to make the world a better place. So that's how I got here.
See, and that's my story too. I always talk about I got pulled in and now I'm here because the people are so great.
Right. It's true.
Like one little aspect of it, look over at our chat and how many people are wishing Valerie a happy birthday before they
I love that.
Valerie I was talking about. So we've got such a great group of people. Kat, I'm going to come to you and have you do the same here.
Awesome. Yeah. So happy birthday, Valerie, and anyone else that has a birthday today. So I started out as a high school biology teacher in my professional career, working with the Gen Z, actually. And my best friend, Chelsea Buser, was working in this space and suggested that I made a career change into Esquire, which is a court reporting company, but specifically working in the enterprise division with the insurance companies. And I didn't know anything about depositions. I didn't know anything about insurance. And I just said, sure, yeah, let's do it. And then when I got in, I realized I needed to learn a lot about this industry in order to support it. And there was not a lot of information for me to Google. That's where we go. We go into Google, and being a teacher, I was like, I'll teach myself as much as I need to know. And the information was very limited. So shortly thereafter, partnering closely with Amy Cooper, developing Rise is something that I became very passionate about, providing as much information as possible to net new talent entering into insurance, and then the current talent that's in insurance to support them. So kind of like building the plane as I was flying it, essentially. To this day, there's so much for me to learn about insurance. And every time I learn something, I think, wow, I'm sure that other people don't know this either. We need to put this information on a pedestal somewhere so that people can easily access it. So I used my passion with education, and obviously working with younger individuals in the high school level, and my passion for learning and insurance now to kind of bolster all of that together into Rise and continue to be and support the talent that's here. So kind of falling in like most people, but love it. Love it. There's so much to know and learn and discover. So yeah.
So all of you other teachers out there, because Kat and I are both previous high school, middle school teachers. I was social studies, which will surprise no one based off of how obsessed I am with people and how they're at the center of transformations. But that's a great way to come in. And Melissa, I want to come to you, do the same thing. And then we're going to start diving into this topic a little bit further. But without further ado.
Yeah, absolutely. And good morning, everyone. And Emma, thank you for inviting me to this episode of Leading Change. So my current role at CCC, I work for CCC, and I'm an associate director in our SafeKeep subrogation product division, which has dedicated to driving impact in the subrogation space through AI and machine learning technologies. And my background, I've held various positions in technology sales, go-to-market, as well as account management. Actually started in account management as really a generalist across all industries, and then went into just working across financial services, which led me into really specializing in the insurance industry. So that's how I fell into insurance. And it was with SafeKeep and InsurTech, which leverages AI in the subrogation space. And so I was working at a corporate enterprise software company at the time, Oracle, and was reached out to go help grow a business. It was early seed stage, and I come from a communications and entrepreneurship background, and so for me it was that gut feeling that kind of drove me to the driving technology within insurance and helped me dive directly into insurance versus working broadly across financial services. So that's really SafeKeep was truly my entry point into the industry. And similar to what Kate said, I couldn't be more thankful that that's what got me into insurance. And I am just so happy for, all the opportunities that it's presented since then, as well as the relationships. The people are truly what makes the insurance industry the best.
So what I want to do now, again, Valerie has entered the chat and her name is going to show up as LinkedIn user, but she is here. She is, in fact, celebrating her birthday with us. And then what I want to do is start kind of going in and diving in more to this topic of like, this is why insurance is important. And I just want to give like a little blurb on why this topic came to mind before we dive in. And Kate, I'm going to come to you and talk with you specifically about what you and your team are focused on. But for those that don't know, I do a lot on TikTok. And when I create content on the insurance industry in TikTok, I get the true unfiltered view of what our industry is seen as outside of our theoretical four walls. And the things that we're already touching on in this first couple of minutes through our introductions is a very different vibe than what we get in terms of our rep within the rest of the world. And I think it's really important for us to start talking about the insurance industry in a different light, rather than making jokes about the fact that like, oh yeah, like I work in insurance, isn't that fun? And actually highlighting, oh, there was some cat hair that just flew by me. Live TV, everyone. But like actually highlighting the things that are wonderful about our industry and the work that we're doing to support people. So Kate, you talked about the idea that we can help people get back up on their feet again. And I think these messages are really important to share. So everybody in the chat that's here, like I said, continue to throw questions in. I can't keep up with you guys today, which I love because there's so much coming into the chat, but throw questions there. We'll pull them in as we start going. And then Brian is also in here, and he said such a good point. He's part of the reason that I think we had one of my first conversations that I had about this topic of changing our reputation in the industry. So I'm glad you're here with us too, Brian. So Kate, to get the conversation started, I think that this is a really good one for us to start then talking about why it's difficult to bring people in from a career perspective. But can you share a little bit about why you and your co-founder thought to focus on that young, tech-savvy demographic from an insurance perspective and what you guys have seen since you've started?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've always really loved about the insurance industry is that I feel like we're really deeply respectful of the people we serve. We take care of claimants really well. We take care of people who call at 2 a.m. with a question really well. But I also think that sometimes we are not nearly as respectful of people who we can't serve, as though there's some sort of issue with them, not an issue with us and the way we're approaching them. And younger adults are actually one of those groups of people. How many times have you heard phrasing like non-standard applied to people who haven't had insurance before? But every young person buying insurance for the first time has no proof of prior, right? So I think that my co-founder Jay Grayson and I saw two things. First of all, that younger tech-savvy people are a vastly underserved market in the insurance space, in particular because their lifestyles are not the same as sort of the game of life, like click, 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 path that people might have taken 20 years ago. So now you might graduate from college or finish military service, and you don't immediately buy a car and then 2 years later buy a condo and then get married and then buy a house and, 2.5 children and 1 dog and 1 cat later, right? So the insurance products that you need are not necessarily, which were defined by assets in a prior generation, are no longer necessarily what you need. And so I think sometimes what that can lead to is when younger adults are looking for protection because they're driving a lot, but they're driving zip cars and borrowed cars. And now they've got a long-term car subscription that they book through an app. When they talk to an agency or sometimes even when they call a carrier, they sort of get a not super respectful response and sometimes even a very incorrect response. And if you think about it, those younger adults are the insurance consumers of the future. They may or may not buy the assets that people used to buy, but those experiences they have early in life when they can or have trouble accessing protection and kind of feel the ability to feel safe, which is the other thing that we provide. It's intangible, but it's super important. Those sorts of experiences kind of will lead them. They have the highest lifetime value of any customer group if you think about it. And so those early experiences matter a lot in terms of who they stay with over time. So we sort of saw that disrespect in the fact that they needed a different set of products. And then also just that, I think we all know this, much of the insurance industry is mired in older technology, right? It's just a complex business, a lot of interconnected systems. Many of them are quite old, and they're therefore hard to change. And so what we also saw was that in addition to products and product fit and lifestyle changes, there are also just communication changes. Like Emma, you mentioned TikTok. We're on TikTok as well. And we get tons of clicks and tons of views and tons of people reaching out simply because they saw us. Right now, we're a startup. The fact that we stand out on TikTok is because nobody else is there. Really, you and us, Emma, and a few other players. It's not because we've managed to blanket the airwaves with it. So what does it say that TikTok is one of the most common social media platforms that younger adults use, and most insurance companies aren't even there, right? Or they're just putting their television commercials on TikTok rather than developing native content. It says that the insurance industry is not actually looking at these consumers as people who need protection now and will need protection in the future. So I think it's those two things, kind of the deep respect for this underserved market, and the ability to reach them just by doing things a little bit differently than most insurance companies and agencies are that really led us to this target market.
Well, and I mean, to your point, one, I will shout it from the rooftops that any and every B2B company should be evaluating what their TikTok strategy looks like, because it's not just me and people that are 15 years younger than me that are on the platform. There's people that have kids that are in college that are looking for different solutions, and they're going to convert the same way. So I could go on a whole nother rant just about that separately. But to your point, the part that I want to kind of like pick on and then come to you, Kat, to kind of look at how you've seen this transition into the career aspect is this idea of being non-standard and maybe not having the same lived experience that our industry is used to. And I'd love to hear in the chat with everybody watching when they bought their first insurance policy, because I bet that drastically differs from people that are a handful of years older than me to where I'm at. And I bet my kids might be later on in life than I was. Most people, especially health insurance, are staying on with their parents until they hit 26 because they can. But like, there's still a lot of families that share car insurance policies, or like your first rental policy being on your parents' umbrella, like all of these things where you're still financially reliant on your parents. That age has shifted pretty significantly in comparison. I don't think I bought car insurance until I was like 21, 22 years old. And that's probably even earlier than some people now do. So I'd love to, I see a couple of those coming in right now. But Kat, going back to that idea of kind of like a different life experience, you and I were having a conversation about the idea of transitioners and the idea of, how are we looking at this gap, and what are ways for us to be able to approach this differently? Just because someone's got different experience or a different background than maybe what our insurance minds are used to, what are some ways that we can start to combat that kind of with that same thought in mind?
Yeah. So with, being on TikTok, like you both mentioned, it's funny because people, when I say people, experienced individuals give TikTok and social media a bad rap, but the truth is it's just the new TV. Our parents used to sit on the television and watch the news and watch all the commercials. We don't do that anymore with our families, so we get information from social media. So social media, if you're not out there promoting your brand or promoting your information, it's not going to get in front of young people, period. But to your point with not knowing how to buy insurance or not being exposed to purchasing insurance until later on in life, that right there, if you don't know about purchasing insurance until you're in your mid-20s, you're already a career professional. You already have a job. So you obviously don't have a job in insurance. You didn't even know about insurance. You didn't know it existed. So I think education on what insurance is, not as a career path, just what is insurance, educating younger people, high school, middle school, what it's there for, and then being able to identify the different roles that insurance has to offer that individuals can pursue as a potential career path. We know doctor, lawyer, engineer, nurse, because they're in front of us and we hear about it, we see it on TV. So it's familiar and it's something that we can identify with and say that that's what we want to be when we grow up. But no one's saying, I'm going to be an actuary. I'm going to grow up and be an underwriter. I'm going to be a claims adjuster. They've never heard of those words. They've never seen it. So we need to familiarize them with it. There are some movies that I can't think of the name of the one. Is it Ocean's 11? That there's an investigator for insurance. But anyway, I think that there's very limited exposure for insurance professionals on TV and movies. So we need to push it through TikTok. But transitioners is a great start to attracting talent besides the obvious net new talent coming right out of college. I myself was a high school biology teacher. I had a lot of great skills, I would hope, being an educator. nurses have great skills, lots of professional and business acumen already, that you only need to teach the skills to do the job at that point. These people know how to send emails and communicate in a professional setting, know how to be in meetings, all of that. What they don't know is the insurance aspect. And if I can sit down with an agent for 15 minutes and be taught about purchasing a policy, then it shouldn't take as much time to kind of ease me into understanding how to, handle a claim. And obviously you're not going to jump into handling some type of aerospace claim, but training, it's expensive, but is it as expensive as poaching? We talked about that, Emma, you and I, where there's a lot of money in recruiting right now and recruiting the same talent. And I'm all for it. It's actually a phenomenal industry. My best friend, who I mentioned before, that got me into this industry, she owns International, phenomenal recruiting agency in the insurance space. But people are stealing the same person over and over again because that's the only person left that has this knowledge. So if you're limiting the knowledge to just a handful of individuals and you're not allowing for knowledge transfer and training, you're doing yourself and the industry a disservice. So if we take the money that we're spending on poaching and analyze that and compare it to how much money it would cost to train net new talent and allow for some of this knowledge transfer, I don't have the data on that and the analytics on that. Maybe someone in the comments does, but that's a great way to start. And instead of looking at, oh, wow, this is going to cost us a lot to train, think about, well, how much are we spending on poaching right now? The other piece with obviously net new talent, going into colleges, going into universities, it doesn't have to be risk management degrees, okay? You can go into the political science classes, the criminal justice classes, lots of different
engineering,
engineering, nursing, biology, you name it, and just expose these younger people to, hey, your skill set transfers.
Mm-hmm. So I want to come to you then, Melissa, specifically to talk about this idea of being a transitioner. And again, Kate, I would kind of classify you, and I'm sorry, everyone, my new camera is flickering. So if that's distracting, I apologize. But Kate, you were kind of a transitioner, obviously earlier, but you were brought in to the.
I was a management consultant in the telecom industry before this. And my undergraduate degree is in history and Celtic studies. I studied medieval Welsh, which has had zero application in the insurance industry.
Well, it made you a well-rounded person. And I know Lisa Wardlaw always talks about this idea too. And I'm not sure if she's in the chat. I'll have to get the book title, but she's got a book that she always talks about that's like how social degrees and what's the word I'm looking for? Liberal arts people are going to be the ones that really take the helm as we're looking at growing in the tech world. And I think all of us kind of fall under that, except for the biology side of Kat. But we've got two teachers. And then Melissa, obviously you mentioned this idea of going from finance to specializing within insurance. But what I want to tap on is this idea of training. And what is it like? We've all had that lived experience, and I'm sure many people in the comments too, coming into the industry and being like, oh my gosh, there are so many acronyms and there's these things that I have no idea and my head is spinning. But then you go to look it up and there's really not as much within our industry as there would be. Like, you can get a physiology book and learn about the body. There isn't like one central place to go to learn all about insurance. So Melissa, can you talk a little bit about what that knowledge gaining process looked like when you first started?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I jump in, I just have to tie it all together with a comment from one of my meetings that I had yesterday. Someone said, there's no degree in insurance. So it's just basically my right when they said that, I thought about this panel and why younger generations should be enthusiastic about entering the industry, because you can come from all different backgrounds. And really you can gain that subject matter expertise. And that's kind of what I want to walk through, is coming from, that generalist background. The learning curve was very, I would say, daunting at first. But what I will say is, if you're willing to put in the work and, be proactive, to reach out to people for, help and getting that understanding. Since, what you referenced, Emma, as well as Kat, it's not everything's out there on Google. And so for me, it was really important to reach out to both mentors as well as colleagues. So a key person was one of my colleagues, actually, who has over 25 years in the industry. And we would sit down every Friday for several months and go over a new topic. And it could have been a topic that came up in conversation that week that, I wasn't very familiar with. And so it was consistently being able to learn something new, which is still to this day, I'm learning new things in the industry. But what else was really important outside of just education was attending industry events, as well as joining industry organizations. I think the more exposure you get to different various roles across the industry, and being able to have those conversations and understand, whether it's in claims handling or underwriting or on the innovation side or customer service, you're getting that broad perspective that you can't just get from typing in Google search. You need to go out and actually have those conversations to have a better understanding of the industry as a whole. And then joining industry organizations. For me, I'm specialized in subrogation specifically. So I joined NASP, which is the National Association of Subrog Professionals. So things like that are really important. I also, right when I was diving in, I signed up for just about every insurance newsletter that was out there. My inbox is still very full from some of those. And then lastly, what I would say is getting the experience. So for me, that was shadowing, since I'm on the technology side, but shadowing to get an understanding of the lens of my customer, who's the carrier. And so I actually would sit down with a subrogation professional and watch them work a claim. And I think that for me really made everything come together and click. So from that would be my recommendation, is getting that firsthand experience as well.
There we go. I had to make sure I didn't come on back muted like I always do when I'm doing these lives. One thing that I want to touch on real quick, a little off script, so to speak, is something that you mentioned, Melissa, about always continuing to learn. And this kind of comes back to a question that I'll ask you in a second, Kat. But one of the things that I think is very undervalued is the idea of reverse mentorship, and how much can be taken as an experienced person in the industry from being a mentor, the questions that you get, but then also being able to get a different perspective and ask questions to somebody, going back to this idea of having different lived experiences and different views on the world than you. And we'll get into a little bit more of what Rise is doing to help people kind of build their careers. But that's one thing, like for me, that I've learned the most of recently is like sitting down with somebody who I'm mentoring that's in a different part of the life cycle within insurance, hearing what are the things that are challenges for them within their career, and then being able to ask them questions about stuff that I just don't know about because it's not part of my day-to-day. And just getting that different experience of the industry, I think, is really, really powerful. So for anybody that's maybe more advanced in their career within insurance, think about getting involved in some sort of mentoring program, more than just giving back, because you're going to get something out of it too. We'll get to you in a second, Kat, and hear all about all of the Rise things. But before that, Kate, I do want to ask you, so you mentioned this idea of, kind of coming in initially, but there's also been a couple of, let's say, failed escaped attempts in the insurance industry throughout your career, but you keep coming back. And beyond the people, I want to just talk with you a little bit about what that ebb and flow of your career has looked like within the industry, and what is it that really does keep pulling you back in?
Yeah. So I have had a couple of ebbs and flows, which may not be obvious from my LinkedIn profile. But when I left Liberty in 2016, I actually went back to school for a while in an unrelated scientific subject, and then dropped out of graduate school to come back to insurance. I don't know. They say something about like, isn't it, if you drop out of school, doesn't that make you a more successful entrepreneur? I don't know. I'm still hoping, right? But yeah, so there was sort of that. And then there've been a few other times when I've looked around, when I'm thinking about a new role or I need to learn, I need to be in a spot where I'm learning more. And I looked at non-insurance roles, but ended up back in insurance. And I think really what keeps pulling me back is sort of two things. First, the people. I know we've all said that and it sounds so trite, but the people in this industry are amazing. And I feel like at the moment when I was trying to make a decision, I had some pivotal conversations with people that I really respected deeply, who were sort of like, there's so much you could do in this industry that would keep you learning and keep you growing, and keep you really happy and serving your customers really well. So I think that's one thing. But I think the second thing is just and I'm going to sound like a real insurance geek, but this is such a fascinating industry. It is so complex. There are so many pieces of it. There's so much data. There's so much interplay between regulation and public interest and human behavior. Like, how can it fail to be fascinating? And I think sometimes you can have a role where you feel like you've learned everything in the role, or you're not growing in the role, or there's something about it that's not quite right. And you've stopped learning and it feels like, oh, that means I need to leave. But really all it means is that you need to change, right? And change is hard. And sometimes, it's not always obvious kind of what you want to do next, but really just switching up my viewpoint to a different part of the industry has been so vastly interesting. I mean, I know I'm probably older than most of the rest of the panelists, but I'm amazed by how generative midlife can be in this industry when you're willing to jump and make changes and continue to grow. I feel like I've learned more in the last 5 years than I did in probably the 10 years before that. And it's truly been amazing.
Well, I echo what Meredith said. We're all really happy that we've lured you back in and that we get to spend some time with you this morning as well. This is going to be my last call. We've got a couple more questions, but we've got about 15 minutes left. So if you do have questions for any of our panelists, make sure you're throwing them into the chat and we will make sure to pull what we can in or answer it later after the fact. And I've teased this now multiple times, but Kat, I want to come to you now and talk specifically about what you and the team at Rise are doing to help people that are early in their careers. I just mentioned some of the benefit that I get from being a part of the group and mentoring, but can you talk a little bit about like what you guys are doing to make sure that people really feel like they can build a career within the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. And Kate, when you mentioned change is scary, but change is necessary and, all that, insurance is the greatest industry to be in if you love change because the opportunities are endless. You can do so many things. You can be in one role for 15 years and then go into 100 different roles for the rest of your career if you'd like, because that's how much insurance has to offer. But yeah, so Rise's goal is to be an aggregate of as many resources as possible that the insurance industry has to offer. So Meredith had commented before, so I said her name. Emma, you had mentioned before with insurance having so much to offer, and it's not available on Google. You can't just find it. You're really digging through information. And when I came into this industry, I was pulling from everywhere. So we want to be able to be like a one central location that, hey, I'm potentially interested in insurance, or hey, I'm in insurance, but I'm still lost. Come to Rise and we will show you all of the different associations. NASP is one of them. Amazing. Lots of different industry events. Connected Claims is coming up in Austin. All of the resources that insurance has to offer, regardless if it's underwriting, actuary, if it's subrogation, investigation, you name it. We want to show people everything. And then we want to provide as many resources as possible. So with launching our Elite 50 list, letting younger folks know that there's internship opportunities, get them in early, right? And then obviously with our Rise Awards to recognize the younger, newer talent that is here, to give them an opportunity to see that, hey, there's a light and there's so much recognition available for me. And then these are the next things that I can enter into. Our mentorship program, one of the most successful things I've ever done in my life, very proud of it. Being paired with a mentor or being paired with a mentee, depending on where you are in your career, having a stable person that you can connect with that isn't your direct report, that doesn't work in your company, that isn't necessarily even working directly in the same sector within insurance, but is somebody there that you can bounce ideas off of and help pull different perspectives from. So through that, that's another opportunity to keep people here once they're in. We provide scholarship opportunities, scholarships, financial scholarships, scholarships to attend industry events. We've recognized that sometimes, maybe you are a non-standard auto adjuster and that was your entry into insurance and that's all you know, and you're very limited to realizing how much there is out there that insurance has to offer. If you get sent to a conference, your mind is blown. You walk in and you're like, I didn't know that insurance was this big and had this much to offer and is this innovative, because maybe these are the tools that I've been exposed to. And then it allows for more ideation and innovation for them to bring that back to their teams, and potentially opportunities for reverse mentoring, which is another really, really just new topic for people to jump into if they're trying to allow for innovation in their space. So we're attempting to provide as much educational opportunities for younger, newer folks into the industry, a lot of networking, a lot of connection, a lot of direction. We want to be able to have somebody come in and we say, come on in. Let me open the door for you. Pick a door. What interests you the most? Oh, you like numbers, or you like people, or you like negotiating. Whatever it is you like, insurance has a job for you. So let's point you in the right direction. Let's point you in the right association direction to get part of. This is a great event that you should attend. This is a great webinar you should watch, and just hold their hand through so that they feel like they have a place, a home, a connection. Because again, we all mentioned how incredible the people are here. So once you start finding your little niche of your little home of friends, you're going to be much more likely to stay.
So one thing I want to add to this conversation, and this is like my soapbox that I will climb onto and stay on, I think, moving forward, but coming from education, and Kat, you can certainly identify this as well. You are a teacher in a subject with a certification to work with a certain group of students. And unless you go back to school, you stay in that spot. If you're a nurse, you are within that role unless you go back to school and continue your education to specialize in a different space. When you're a lawyer, you practice a certain kind of law until you have the experience to move. Within the insurance industry, we don't have those bounds. And I think that that's something that's really underrepresented in terms of just what you said, Kat. Here is a menu of options based off of where your skill set sits and what you're passionate about. Now, let us help you find your fit. There's not a lot of industries that have that same type of career mobility. And being somebody who's 33 years old, who came into the industry a little bit late, but has found this opportunity to be a voice and share these types of stories, it's really, really important to me to help get that message out, because I don't think, going back into the comments, and I could try, but I can't talk and look at the same time, there were many comments about people not knowing anything about the industry until they got in. I think Robin may have said, if I'm thinking of the right person, that she literally didn't know anything about insurance until she got into the industry. And we need to start changing that. So again, I'll continue to climb up onto this soapbox over and over again. But the last question that I want to do today, and Melissa, this one's going to come to you, and I would love to hear everybody's answer to this in the comments as well, because I think that selfishly, I think it could make a really cool post pulling everybody's thoughts and feelings together on this. So come join me, be a part of this. So Melissa, what excites you so much about the industry? Because you said something very specific about why you came into insurance, which I want everybody to hear. So tell me what excites you about the industry and why you chose insurance over the rest of finance.
Yeah. So why I chose insurance and what's so exciting to me about the insurance industry as a whole is that there's just so much opportunity, one from a career perspective, which Kat just mentioned, but also just so with me and my technology background, what's exciting is the vast opportunity for innovation and how quickly it's evolving to adapt different technologies to really get people and more educated at a younger stage in their life. And so how do you target a certain consumer that is on TikTok all the time and is only going to be leveraging their phone and digitally versus making a phone call if they're submitting a claim, things like that. And so from my perspective, insurance, I also saw a sense of community. And I think that's because I entered into insurance through an insurtech. And so there's that whole insurtech community, but it's partnering with all of the carriers. And so really the partnerships between that, I saw a sense of community before I joined into the industry. And I see that to today. It's held true. And then from my perspective on the technology side, what continues to drive and motivate me are, I'm on the front lines with our customers every day, and I'm able to see an idea that's in a conversation turn to an actual product months later. And so being able to help our customers in that way by building and developing technology to support their needs is really impactful and keeps me excited about the industry. And the last point I would make is around what I've seen just as we've built our business within the subrogation organization at CCC is utilizing, as we've brought on talent, it are folks that have that subject matter expertise are now helping build the product and are making the transition from being a claims adjuster into product management as well. And so for me to see that happen is really cool because the opportunity is endless. If you want to become more on the technology side of claims, you have that vast subject matter expert to really build a product that is meeting the challenges that they firsthand saw. So I'll close with obviously the people and the community, which I mentioned earlier is what keeps me here too.
Great. So we've got just about a minute left on my scheduled 45-minute endeavor. But I want to take a second to thank all three of you for being here, sharing your insights, for how active the chat is. Again, I'm going to spend some time this afternoon going back through, responding to comments, pulling some of these together to get people jacked up and excited about the insurance industry moving forward. But I think everybody in the audience seems to have enjoyed the conversation and had a lot to share with us as well. Anybody who's joining us, thank you so much for spending your morning with us. Valerie, one more happy birthday for you before we get off. I told you birthdays are a big deal to me. I was going to bring it up. And certainly let us know if you've got any other questions or feedback for us in the comments. And my last little plug for everybody, if you're not already, make sure that you follow the Leading Change page here on LinkedIn and YouTube so that you get access to all of these. And keep an eye out for a September episode of Leading Change Live. And if you've got ideas for people that you'd like to see come join us for one of these, send them my way. Randall suggested that I bring Kate in, and I had this idea rattling in the back of my mind, and it confirmed it and it was booked. So tell me your ideas. I'd love to have you all be a part of the community as actively as possible. Kate, Kat, Melissa, thank you so much for joining me, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you, Emma. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.